If you can save that money by reducing those failed deliveries, you're essentially enabling the company to be more profitable in a very simple and effective way. Hello everybody, my name's Stephen Neale. I'm a solution engineer at Nearmap, and today I wanted to dig into this topic of deliveries and these failed deliveries really that occur with heavy material. So these are usually trucks that are larger than a standard truck. Maybe they've got construction materials or materials for someone renovating a house, for example. And they need to be able to offload that material safely. Now, a lot of the time you're given an address and you don't really know what you're going to encounter when you get to that address. Apparently, in 10% of the time, and this is a figure that we've heard from some of the customers that we've spoken to, about 10% of the time there is a failed delivery because something prevents access to the site to offload those materials. Now, 10% of deliveries failing is a significant cost, and often it's the organization or the company responsible for doing the delivery that ends up incurring that cost because the information is not clear. You want to serve the customer as well as you can. So the ability to reduce that is an advantage for an organization purely for time, a cost saving, and from the perspective of customer satisfaction. So we started to explore this particular topic of how we could reduce failed deliveries, and we found that a combination of our imagery and our AI features could actually be quite helpful in doing that. Now, there are three really main topics that were identified that would prevent a delivery, and that is power lines. So for a lot of vehicles, large vehicles, you're not meant to come within about 3 meters of a power line. Often there are also large trees, and a large tree might be overhanging a driveway or a delivery location. The other point is the driveway itself may not be visible, especially in strange situations like a corner address or a battle axe block or something a little bit unusual, and that truck may turn up and not be able to identify the correct place to offload the materials. So we started to look into this, and what I have here on my screen is just a pretty typical residential location. If I zoom in onto this location, I'll look at this corner block here, and corner blocks are always interesting because they have difficult addresses. Navigation systems can't handle them well, and it's never quite clear where the entrance or the entry point to that property may be. Now, the image is always useful, and that is part of this story. Validation of what you're going to expect when you arrive at site, and the potential for a customer to mark up that image and say, hey, this is where we'd like to have those materials dropped off. But if I look here at our AI layers on the side, there is one particular layer here, vegetation, which is key to this. If I turn on those medium and high vegetation layers, we can see where a delivery could be a problem. But it's really when we combine that with something like the driveway layer, and a driveway layer is one of our early production layers for surfaces, and if we turn on that surfaces layer, we can see how the vegetation may interact with that particular location. And so in this example here on this corner address, we can see that there is a very large tree and there is a small part of the driveway visible here. So already that is an indicator of where we could be dropping off the materials and what could prevent us from dropping off the materials at this location. Now we also have this experimental layer for power lines. It's an interesting feature to try and identify through imagery, but even as an experimental layer for us, we've had some success with it. Now, this corner address actually has power lines wrapping right around it. On the northeast side of the property, the power lines are on the property side of the road. On the southeast side of that property, they're on the other side of the street. So one way or the other, this construction vehicle is going to have to get under those power lines and be able to offload the material safely. Whether or not they need a crane is hard to say. But this information that we can see here really gives the people planning that delivery enough information to inquire more and get some feedback from the resident or the owner to advise them where is the best place to offload that material. And this is where we sort of see this process going. Once you can identify the features that put the delivery at risk, being able to present that to the customer and have them mark this up and say, hey, this is where we would like this dropped off, this is where we don't want this dropped off, that gives the people making the delivery all the information they need to do this. They're also often the experts in this process, so they might come back to that customer and say, we're not going to be able to get to this location due to those power lines. Is there an alternative place that we can go? The typical customer for this type of solution is someone that is delivering large materials. So that's quite broad. It often happens in the construction industry. So we might be talking about framing for roofs, or maybe it's a large array of solar panels, or even something like a pool that needs to be delivered. Those objects that are need to be delivered on a sort of a medium to large size truck and may or may not need some sort of a crane to offload it. And it's those trucks and that size in particular that has a lot of trouble with these, because they have the restrictions of things like height and access into, say, a narrow driveway, but they have to make a lot of these deliveries to residential addresses. The organisations that are heavily dependent on making these deliveries, 10% is a big deal. When you think about 10% of costs, and what that means in terms of margins on products, you're really eating away at those margins. So if you can save that money by reducing those failed deliveries, you're essentially enabling the company to be more profitable in a very simple and effective way. If you want to learn more, reach out to us today.